everyone, welcome to BrickVault. My name's Jack. Today is a very special episode because this marks roughly the 1 year anniversary that this show has been around. So I'd like to thank you guys for watching, liking, subscribing, doing everything that helps support this channel. We really do like making these episodes for you guys, especially when they're episodes like this. This is the ultimate collector series, Imperial Shuttle. It's recommended for ages 16 and up. It is set number 10212 and it has 2,503 pieces. Included are 5 minifigs. There is Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader, a Stormtrooper, an Imperial pilot, and an Imperial commander. This ship looks like it's gonna be a huge set. I'm really liking the shape of this cockpit, and I can't wait to compare this thing to the more recently made Imperial Shuttle that we already have. So 2,500 pieces is probably gonna be a bunch of bags. Let's find out what's inside this box. All right, so the box contains, I believe, 23 bags, and unfortunately, there are no numbers on these bags. So I'm gonna have to actually open them all up, organize everything, try to keep them sort of as separated and as organized as possible, because 2,500 loose pieces on a table is not really an ideal situation for a Lego build. But let's get started. Alright, so here is the Imperial Shuttle. It is one immaculate design. I'm really pleased with the way this thing turned out. But before I get into it, I just gotta say, wow, that was a pretty difficult build. Not so much in terms of technical difficulty. I thought the techniques used were relatively straightforward, but the combination of no numbers on the bags and the fact that some of the black pieces showed up as black in the manual and other black pieces showed up as just dark gray definitely threw me off. This ship was released only back in 2010, but it's striking to see how much the instructions have changed since then and how big of an improvement they actually are. Something tells me if this Ultimate Collector's ship, the exact same one, came out this year and had numbered bags, it could have easily shaved an hour off of the build time. Anyways, it took a lot longer than I thought it was gonna take, but I think it was worth it. It's hard for me to say what part of the ship I think is my favorite. There's a lot of excellent shapes that are included here. I think right off the bat, I'm gonna start with the cockpit. It almost feels like this build started here because the shape is just so nice, and the rest of the model was scaled to fit this. I don't really believe that's true. This is true minifig scale after all, but the shape here is undeniably nice. And this whole thing opens up in a really interesting way. You actually just push the nose down and the whole cockpit folds forward. The interior is spacious, though admittedly a little bit bland. There is space for 4 minifigs to sit, and we've got a front console with some simple sticker detailing. It's nothing to write home about, but this model was not built for its interior detailing by any means, and actually this is the only part of the interior of the ship that you get to access. The rest is all just technical insides. Some of you might think that is pretty surprising considering the Shuttle Tiderium, set number 75094, is about half the size, maybe even less than half the size of this set. And this ship, being the exact same kind of Imperial Shuttle, actually does come with a pretty decent interior. And looking at the ships side by side, you can definitely get an idea for what a true minifig scale version of the shuttle is. And though everything on the Imperial Shuttle here is scaled up quite a bit, you will note that if you look at it from behind, the thrusters in the back, the glowing blue bits, are, believe it or not, the exact same dimensions. But enough of this little shuttle, let's talk more about some of these awesome details. Back at the front, we've got 2 sets of twin kinds of blasters. The names of them are on the display card, but I'm just gonna refer to them as the smaller blasters and the larger ones. The 2 smaller twin blasters on the shoulder look really good. They're not posable, but we just have some excellent detailing in the front. And I especially like how we have this sort of raised lip, or this curved lip that goes around the front of the shoulder that kind of outlines or encases this blaster. Remember, this ship is nearly all white, and if we didn't have details like this, the design would fall flat and start looking really boring really quick. These larger blasters that are attached to the wings themselves have these discs on the outside, and though there's a bit more spacing here than maybe what's on the actual shuttle, they do look pretty accurate and there is a bit of posability to them. Now as we move further back, we can start taking a closer look at these wings. And the 2 wings and the fin on the top are really some of the most iconic parts of the ship. And here's where I think the build really excels. There are 0 studs present on the fin or either of the wings, and the use of those angled Technic pieces that make up the curve on the bottom wings happens to work just about perfectly. The only way to make these thin wide wings the shape that they are is by interlacing them heavily with Technic in the center. And not only does it work very well to keep them strong, but I believe it improves the look overall as well. Looking at shots of the shuttle from the film, you'll notice that there's quite a lot of panel detailing on the sides of these wings, though they are totally smooth. And seeing the Technic pieces interlaced with the other Lego kind of serves, at least for me, as some sort of panel detailing. I'm so glad that they didn't put any stickers on the sides of these wings. But as we move back towards the main body of the shuttle, you can see there are a few studs showing sort of on the top and a little bit on the sides, but now I'm just kind of noticing it. This is one set from Lego that has nearly no studs showing at all. I think that is actually pretty fitting for a ship like this. It is relatively curvy and sleek, and when checking out the details along the hull here, there really aren't any inaccuracies that I can point out. There's a couple of curves that they couldn't really quite make the shape out in Lego, but I'm looking back and forth at photographs from the shuttle, and everything here looks pretty much spot on. Pretty much everything, but of course not these giant gaping holes in the sides. In order to keep the wings on properly, I don't really see how they could have worked around it too much more than this. So yeah, this is by far the most gaping difference, quite literally gaping. But I for one don't really mind because the wings look awesome. They're, I think, a little bit more important to have look right. And in doing so, they do weigh quite a bit. so strong gears in place are absolutely necessary to keep this ship from falling apart. And actually there's a pretty decent function on how they come up and down. Let's take a look at the back and find out. Well, first off, there's some great details to admire here. I like that those pieces that are usually transparent and used as windshields were molded in white, and they make up a nice little curve for the back by the thrusters. Also, there's one more turret cannon sticking out the back. It's not really posable, in fact it's pretty delicate, but it certainly is fitting, and this is something that was not included on the playset. But let's break down how these wings actually fold. You can see some darker gray pieces, and there is where you insert these two little handles that connect to the gears. These pieces are actually just one of many pieces that remain sort of detached from this ship when it is in the display mode on the stand, but I'll get into that a little bit later. All you have to do is turn the gears, and it slowly but surely raises or lowers the wings. You kind of have to steady the shuttle out when you're moving the wings up or down. This thing certainly is a bit wobbly, but considering the size, weight, and height of this ship on display, I find that relatively forgivable. But now we've got this thing in what is landing mode, but on the display without its landing gear, it does look a little bit odd. So let's switch this thing over. Now, unfortunately, the landing gear does not fold out, and they remain as separate pieces that you have to attach to the bottom if you want to switch it up. Now, I'm not really a big fan of this process. The ship by no means is flimsy, but it is a little bit delicate, or at least it feels that way. So when you're switching out and putting on these landing gear pieces here, it's just somewhat of a process that you don't really feel like repeating very often. But anyways, they fit in easy enough. You fit in these two little Technic sort of locking pieces here on either side, and you add on these sort of little white blocker pieces as well. I must admit the shuttle does not look nearly as impressive once in landing mode, and I really don't like having a bunch of spare parts sort of lying around that you have to keep track of when this thing is on its display. Now, speaking of the display, let's check it out. It's reinforced well with Technic, it's pretty darn tall, and this is the close-up of the Ultimate Collector Series display card. It's got a bunch of information about the shuttle, lets you know its dimensions in the real world, or what it would be in the real world. And these Ultimate Collector Series stickers in particular are my least favorite to put on. A, they're pretty important to get right, and B, it's super easy to get an air bubble stuck underneath. But anyways, let's check out the minifigs. I know I usually do them in the beginning, but here they are now. First up is Darth Vader. This is a relatively common version of him. He's got decent detailing for the torso, a gray head with quite a few scratches and wounds, and he of course comes with his cape and red saber. Now, according to BrickVault, this is an exclusive release of Luke Skywalker, but I believe he is only technically exclusive because he's got pupils in his eyes, and this is the only time he came out with black and one black hand and pupils in his eyes, though none of these pieces are actually exclusive. The same thing goes for this Imperial pilot here. The hat, torso piece, and face have all been used before in other minifigs, but not quite in this combination, so he is exclusive to the set. But I believe the printing for this gray guy, the Imperial officer, is ever so slightly different from perhaps the other ones, so he may actually be the only true exclusive fig to the set. Interestingly enough, the Imperial pilot actually goes for quite a bit more on BrickVault, so perhaps I'm missing a detail here, but either way, they are decent prints and decent figs. And our last guy is a trusty Stormtrooper. He doesn't have a face in this 2010 release, just comes with a simple black head. He is a good fig, and actually this shuttle only holds 4 figs, so in the instructions it actually just says to keep him on the stands right at the bottom. At the end of the day, he's just sort of an extra Stormtrooper to have. And with that, here is the whole set together. This is one amazing looking Lego build. In more ways than one, it really feels like a true display set. It feels like it was designed for both accuracy and aesthetic beauty more than anything else. Considering the size of these wings and that fin on the top, it's got a decent amount of sturdiness to it, though I will say it is probably one of the more slightly wobbly Ultimate Collector Series sets that I've come into contact with, and it also takes up quite a lot of space. Even in our Lego studio, I gotta say I'm probably gonna reserve this thing to just being in landing mode for the time being. But soon I'd like to rearrange things here so I can manage to get this thing sort of displayed with its wings out. I do think it looks a lot better that way. And I gotta say, we're pretty darn happy having this awesome classic ship here at BrickVault. All right, that's it for this episode. Thanks a lot for watching, everybody. If you enjoy our content, remember you can always like this video or subscribe, and we'll see you next time at BrickVault.